Hey guys, Preston here. Welcome back to another video. We're still in lockdown, but that doesn't mean I can't. So it's led me a lot of time to make a bunch of mock drafts. This is going to be the official mock draft 2.0 on this channel, first round only. I'm considering doing a 2-round one eventually, but man, it's hard. I mean, once I get to the end of the first round, it gets harder to decide too. So I'm going to go through each of my picks, try to explain why, maybe give some other options too, because I feel like this is a pretty unpredictable draft. Especially with the format too, so who knows if there's gonna be less trades, teams taking less of a chance in certain prospects, stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But for now, I mean, my top 5 or 6 is pretty much the same as most people's at the moment. I got Joe Burrow going to the Bengals at number 1. Joe Burrow's kind of earned that spot as the top quarterback in the draft. If Tua didn't have health issues, he probably would be one right now, but Burrow's done it. He's earned it. And I think if you're the Bengals, you would hope that you don't have the number 1 pick again. So if when you do, and there's a quarterback there, you got to take the chance on it. Hopefully, I mean, I'm a Steelers fan, so I hope he doesn't pan out for them. But for him, for his sake, you would hope he does. All right, and then at number 2, the Redskins, they could go multiple different ways. They have a lot of holes. They had the second overall pick for a reason. But I'm going to go ahead and give them debatably what most people still think is the best player in the draft, Chase Young. Defensive end isn't their top need, but if you can get a guy like Chase Young, especially with, Ron Rivera coming in, defensive mind, that's just a great piece to have for a build for the future. You want some studs in that team, some locker room guys, and just young pieces for your future, and he could definitely be one of them. And you'll get to play with Phil's college teammate, Dwayne Haskins. I know some people have had the Redskins going quarterback. I don't think they should. I think the Cardinals, as soon as they did that, getting rid of Rosen for Kyler Murray, I think it's become a trend that everyone wants to see now. I think that was a specific circumstance. I feel like Haskins can still rebound a little bit. Although I will say, I'm sure Tua is better than Dwayne Haskins. It'll just be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Same here. Some people have the Lions going quarterback with the 3rd overall pick. I think they believe in Matthew Stafford. I know they were horrible last year, but for some reason I feel like some people forget Stafford missed most of the season last year, and that's really when they went downhill, is when he was gone. And the kid from Purdue, I'm sorry I forget his name, because I love them at Purdue. David Blau had to take over, and guys like that were playing the whole season, and that's partly why they have the number 3 pick. But really, their top need is on the deep. They have holes everywhere, but the fact that Darius Slay is now gone, it is the perfect opportunity to draft Jeff Okudah, who's a very talented corner, up there with some of the other guys who've been this early in drafts. If you have a chance to get a Jalen Ramsey-like guy, hopefully with better attitude, character stuff, then you have to. I mean, he's young. Hopefully he fits in the system well. He's a very good corner. I think if you have the chance to get a guy like that, you can. And I feel like the corners for the Lions won't be as bad as people think. They signed Desmond Trufant away from the Falcons, and bringing in Jeff Okudah. That's a pretty good 1-2 cornerback room right there, even with Darius Slay being gone. And at number 4, there's a lot of different situations the Giants could go, but I really hope there's only 2 options I could really see, and they'd be either going offensive tackle with a guy like Tristan Wirfs, Mekhi Becton, Andrew Thomas, whoever they like. This is a very good offensive tackle class. But for me, I have them. Their defense is not done. They definitely need a lot of work. Their defense is still their weakest link. I understand protecting Danny Dimes. They could trade back, but I don't have any trades in this mock draft, so I have them going with Isaiah Simmons, a very versatile, very talented linebacker / safety, whatever he is, from Clemson. I think that's a great piece to add to a defense that kind of has holes everywhere, and I think it could really solidify this Giants linebacking core that really hasn't been great for a very, very long time. And at number 5, I have a pick that's very common. With Tua Tagovailoa, or however his last name, probably not the way it's supposed to be pronounced, but yeah, Tua is still a beast. He has his injury issues. He's looked good as of late, just based off the videos and tape he's shown. People around him seem to think he's in good shape. There is still the worry that he's injury prone, but really, even if he needed time, the Dolphins would be a pretty good spot to do it, considering they still have Ryan Fitzpatrick under contract for a year, and I guess Josh Rosen's still there. But you could just have Tua sit for a year, make sure he's fully healthy, and continue to add pieces, because you have a lot of picks in this draft and next year's draft. So really, you could do this draft to get Tua at 5, give him a bunch of pieces, protection, weapons, etc. throughout this draft and throughout next draft, and then he can start next season, something like that. I don't think they should throw him to the Wolves, but I think if you have a chance to get Tua, you take Tua, and that's what the Dolphins did. Especially when you have this many picks, you can afford to take a risk. And then at number 6, with Tua off the board, I still have the Chargers going quarterback. I know they claim that they're all in on Tyrod Taylor, and I think Tyrod Taylor is good, but he doesn't push the needle. And with the Chargers already struggling to find fans and moving into a new giant stadium, I think a young, bright quarterback with a future, such as Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon, just makes sense. So I have them going with Herbert here. Herbert is very good. He could have been debatably the top quarterback in the draft last year. Actually, he probably would have been the top quarterback taken in the draft if he did declare last year. He came back another year, hurt his stock just a tad, but he's still a top 10 pick and a top 10 worthy quarterback in this year's draft. In fact, some mock drafts have had him going ahead of Tua just because he's healthy. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I do think Tua is more talented. That's obvious, if you ask me. And then at number 7, I have the Panthers, the new look Panthers with the new coach. They have a lot of ways they could go to. I mean, offensive line technically, but I think their biggest hole still, the one that's been talked about a decent amount, is on the defense, and that's defensive tackle. And when Derrick Brown is on the board, you get Derrick Brown. Derrick Brown is a stud. He's often underlooked. They don't talk about as much just because his position. Defensive tackles don't get a lot of love or shine, especially in a draft with this many weapons at wide receiver. And, so he falls to them right at 7. I would have, if Isaiah Simmons was still there, that'd be another great option for them, but Derrick Brown's there, you got to take him. At number 8, you have the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, a lot of mock drafts had them going receiver for a while, but the fact that the Texans gave them DeAndre Hopkins for basically nothing, now you can focus on what's debatably most important, and that is protecting your quarterback. So I have them going with, I think, in my opinion, probably the best offensive lineman available. Definitely what Pro Football Network said, and that is Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle out of Iowa. Oh yeah, by the way, I used the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator, so it was their big board and their team needs. I did my best to kind of piece together what I know about teams and some of the prospects, but I definitely went off some of their big board stuff. It looked like they had some people rising up, etc., which we'll get to later. But at number 9, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars on the board. They have holes everywhere. They could do a lot of things. I have them going Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. Kinlaw fell a little bit on this big board, but I remember he's had a lot of hype. He is very good, and defensive tackle is in need. That D-line does need some help now, especially with the fact that Calais Campbell's gone. You give him up for nothing. And that your best player on the defensive line, Yannick Ngakoue, wants out. So got to re-bolster it off that defensive line with some young kids that you don't have to pay a butt ton of money, and hopefully they stay. I think hopefully the Jags can rebound and get some sort of culture in there, because that was a big issue. So Javon Kinlaw seems like a great piece, hardworking kid, very talented. Kind of came out of nowhere. The Senior Bowl really helped him raise his stock. And at number 10, the Browns, they had a pretty good free agency, I'm not going to lie, but they did too last year. But I think they could really shore up this offensive line, especially specifically the tackle positions. They signed Jack Conklin, I believe, so that fixes one of them, but you still have a hole on the other side wherever you want to put either one of them. So I have them going Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle, Louisville. You can put him on left tackle or right tackle, and just Conklin. If you go from, I don't even know who the heck their offensive tackles were, that Becton and Conklin, that is a major improvement and should really help that team out. Unfortunately for me, go Steelers. At number 11, I have the Jets sort of thinking the same way. Sure, they could get a weapon for Sam Darnold. There we go. They could get a weapon for Sam Darnold, but I feel like protecting your quarterback is still more important than giving weapons for him. I think they can make do with what they have. Plus, you got to remember, this is a very deep wide receiver class, so if you have a chance to get offensive line help in a team that desperately needs it, you can still find quality receiving talent in the second, third, and so on. And so I have them going Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle out of Georgia. I think it fits well. Like I said, their offensive line is pretty bad. I know they dressed it in free agency. There weren't a lot of big names there, though, and I still feel like you could have room for another guy such as Andrew Thomas to get in there and really make an impact on this offensive line. It'll be interesting to see what the new look offensive line for the Jets looks like. Because Darnold definitely needs protection. Because just giving him more time to throw makes it easier to find people to throw to, too. So I always think you should build your offensive line over getting weapons. I think that's a pretty safe bet. You always build your lines. The most important things in football, the defensive line and the offensive line, very big. Obviously, quarterback's probably the most, but you can know what I'm saying. So then number 12, I'd say the Raiders already have a pretty good offensive line, and most of the offensive linemen are off the board. Really good tackles are off the board already, so I have them getting a weapon just based off the fact that Antonio Brown is not, a Raider, so that kind of set back there. Our receiving core is going to be awesome. So you get a guy in Jerry Jeudy, who is probably the best wide receiver in this draft class, gives you a great weapon for, why am I forgetting his name? Derek Carr. That you still believe in Derek Carr, at least give him I guess to give him another year at the very least, and give him a very good player to throw to. Jerry Jeudy would be a very impact player. He'd definitely be, in my opinion, he'd probably be their wide receiver one right away, and is definitely just a great weapon to have on an offense. You already have a very solid running game and a pretty good offensive line. You can add a threat in like Jeudy. That helps everyone. You know, if you can't stack the box, if you got to deal with Jerry Jeudy, that just means Josh Jacobs gets even more room to run. Forgive me if that's not his name. I'm pretty sure it is. Their running back from Alabama last year. Probably should have won Rookie of the Year. At number 13, we have the pick that the Colts traded away for DeForest Buckner. Buckner will be a very good addition to that Colts defensive line. I mean, I guess to them it was worth it. We'll see how it goes. I do think Buckner is very good, though. And I think that is who they traded away. Yeah, it was Buckner. So now the 49ers get the team who was in the Super Bowl last year. He gets the 13th overall pick in the draft, and the fact that you lost Emmanuel Sanders, really corner and offensive line are really the biggest needs in this draft. But I feel like some of the receivers that are left, obviously it's a deep receiver class, but not all of them will be as guaranteed impactful as Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. And CeeDee Lamb is still here, and if he's there, you got to take him. And so I have the San Francisco 49ers taking CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. That'll be, I'm talking about fast, by the way, sorry. That'll be a very good weapon for Jimmy G to have. And that really bolsters that wide receiving core. I think he could also be the number one receiver right away in San Francisco, and the fact that a team who's just in the Super Bowl can have a weapon like CeeDee Lamb is very good for them. I think they did well. Then at 14, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's different ways they could go. At first, I probably would have had them going quarterback, but Tom Brady means they can at least wait a year or maybe two before really having to sink in a first-round pick on that. And really, when you got Brady, you're kind of in win-now mode, and so you might as well beef up that offensive line. So I have them taking Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Really, all these tackles up to this point are interchangeable. If you have one ranked higher than the other, you know, you can swap them however you want. I think they're all very skilled. This is a very good tackle and wide receiver class, and I think the Buccaneers, the Bucks capitalize off that and get more protection for Tom Brady to throw to his excellent weapons on the outside. And so they go offense, shore up that offensive line, give Brady more time to throw to those great weapons they have, and help keep him upright because he is an old man. All right. And then at 15, we have the Denver Broncos. They could have gone a couple different ways. I've seen recently they keep talking about getting a wide receiver for him, so I've been going with the speed demon, Henry Ruggs III. The dude can fly, and I guess they also lost Emmanuel Sanders, and so just adding another young weapon to go with Cortland Sutton would be very good, especially for the young Drew Lock. They could have went offensive line here probably, but like I said, most of the best ones were off the board, so I have them going Henry Ruggs III. Number 16, the Atlanta Falcons. You know, they're an interesting team to say the least. They added Dante Fowler, so that helps on the edges. I could have went edge for them, but I think Fowler was enough to make it where they could draft somewhere else. And so I have them getting C.J. Henderson, the corner out of Florida. They lost Trufant, like I mentioned earlier, and they got real young corners all around. But get another guy in the mix there. I think Henderson will do very well and really help that Atlanta Falcons secondary. And then at 17, I have the Cowboys getting A.J. Epineza, defensive end out of Iowa, a good edge rusher for the Cowboys, just to pair with DeMarcus Lawrence. It's a good lineup there. I mean, defensive tackle is pretty much gone from the board. That was probably their biggest need, but I think Epineza would do very well for them. Not a bad addition, although they do have holes everywhere. I guess another option I could have done would be another corner, such as Christian Fulton or Trayvon Diggs, but I have them going a little later on. But corner would make sense for the Cowboys as well. Like I said, they lost a couple pieces on that defense, if we're being 100% honest. Center will also be in need, or interior offensive lineman, especially with Frederick retiring, but I didn't think there was one worth drafting quite this high. They definitely could find one later on. And so at 18, I do have the Miami Dolphins back, and they need protection for their new quarterback, so I have them going Austin Jackson, offensive tackle out of USC. For the most part, I've heard of him being more of a second-round guy, but on the Pro Football Network's site, they had him rated pretty highly. He was a first-round graded guy in their draft board, so I figured, you know what? They need offensive line help regardless. I think Austin Jackson could be a very good offensive lineman in the NFL, so I have them going offensive tackle Austin Jackson to help protect their young, injury-plagued quarterback. So we'll see how it goes. At 19, I have the Oakland Raiders going for corner, so they shored up offense. They shored up wide receiver and corner, both debatably their biggest positions are needed. I mean, the corners were always kind of lacking in Oakland, and they traded away Gareon Conley to the Texans last year, I believe. So getting a new body in there, such as Trayvon Diggs, will help out greatly. At 20, this is probably my more interesting one. If there was trades, I feel like someone probably would have taken Jordan Love already. I'm not entirely sure who, and I also don't know how high. Some people have Love way high, some people have him pretty low. But I have the Jaguars, actually, with their second pick in the first round, taking a flyer on Jordan Love. Gardner Minshew may be the answer. He might not be. Get some competition in there. Jordan Love has a lot of potential as well, and let him just kind of duke it out and see if either one of them will be the future of Jacksonville. When you have a second-round pick, you can afford to make a move like that. And then at 21, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Their biggest need is wide receiver. Corner but I mean, they've done a lot of free agency stuff with that. They traded for Darius Slay. They signed Nicole Roby-Coleman. So I really think wide receiver becomes their top need. And getting a weapon like Denzel Mims is very good for that offense. If Jeffrey can stay healthy, Alshon Jeffrey and Denzel Mims is a pretty good 1-2 punch, if you ask me. At 22, I have the Minnesota Vikings replacing Xavier Rhodes, who really struggled and fell off last season, unfortunately. I mean, I hope he resurges with the Colts, but regardless, the Vikings need a corner, so they go with Christian Fulton, cornerback at LSU. This site had Henderson above Fulton. You could interchange them if you want. I think they're both pretty good. Any of these corners also towards this top, I feel like you can kind of mix them up a bit, except Okudah. Okudah's a clear number one, but after that, it gets a little foggy for me on who's better than who. And so at 23, the Patriots pick. With Jordan Love off the board, I have them going out. Linebacker or edge, debatably. Kavon Chason or Kayvon Chason out of LSU, a very good linebacker for the Patriots to add. They lost Kyle Van Noy, and so just getting some more defensive pieces. That's what Bill Belichick's best at. He's not really great at drafting wide receiver. They could go back-to-back years with first-round wide receivers and get Justin Jefferson, but I don't think that's something New England would do. So instead, I have them shoring up that defense with Chason. And then at pick 24, I have... All right. Sorry about that. I had a video cut out on me. That's fine. We were at pick 24 now, which the Saints, I have them selecting Kenneth Murray. I think this is outside. I feel like he could play inside, linebacker from Oklahoma. The Saints linebacking core isn't all that great, and I think adding a guy like that can really help this defense. We all know how potent their offense can be, so I think just continuing to improve that defense should be their priority for as long as they have a guy like Drew Brees as their quarterback. And with pick 25, I have the Minnesota Vikings, who obviously lost Stephon Diggs, and so they used the pick that I think this is the pick, maybe it was the one before this, either way they used one of their first-round picks to replace him with Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, LSU. Justin Jefferson is a very talented wide receiver in this deep wide receiver draft class, and I think pairing him with Adam Thielen is not a bad way to go, especially... I think Diggs was very talented, but you could tell he didn't want to be there, so get you a young buck who should be happy to play there, and that's a pretty good receiving core again. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Tajay Sharp, not bad. It all depends on their quarterback, Kirk Cousins, and how he does throw it to them. All right, pick 26. We're getting towards the end of the draft here. This is where I had a little bit of trouble with some of these picks. I have them, the Miami Dolphins, going Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama. So basically, they replace their Alabama safety with another Alabama safety. I do not think Xavier McKinney will be anywhere near as good as Minkah Fitzpatrick, but their safeties are kind of old, and getting a young guy in there who has potential will be very good for this team. So I think Xavier McKinney should do a very good job in Miami, especially with Brian Flores. I think he didn't have the best year last year, but it was his first year, and with the talent he had, I think he did very well. I think he can get the most out of these kids, and I really think the Dolphins can be on track to be AFC East contenders in a year or two, especially with, depending on how the Patriots take losing Tom Brady and all that. We'll see, right? It's a very interesting division, finally. And at pick 27, the Seattle Seahawks usually almost always trade out of the first round, but in this, I don't have any trades. So I have them going ahead and taking Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end out of Penn State. a very solid quality edge rusher who will be very good for this team. I do think it all depends. There are rumors that Clowney could re-sign with Seattle, but really the news on Clowney's been kind of dead for a while now, so I don't know for sure. There are still some big free agents out here that could change how the draft goes, but it feels like a lot of these guys won't be signed till after the draft, especially with the draft only being 2 weeks away. So Matos makes the most sense to me, especially if they don't get Clowney. If they do, maybe they could go offensive tackle, just shore up the offensive line, finally give Wilson some protection. A guy like Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State or Josh Jones out of Houston. And we'll just see from there, but I have them with Matos here. And then at pick 28, the Baltimore Ravens, a team I hate. Sorry if you're a Ravens fan. I did give you a good pick, though. I have you going Patrick Queen, linebacker at LSU. Linebacker was one of the top needs for the Ravens based off this, and I feel like Patrick Queen is a very solid player and should help them greatly. They already have a solid defense. Adding a guy like Queen just improves it even more. They could have reached for a receiver here, but I feel like, I don't know. It's not like they utilize the receivers that often anyways. I'm not sure if anyone's really going to just break through in that system. I think they're okay with the guys they have if they can keep Hollywood Brown healthy. And Lamar Jackson just improves his passing game. Obviously, we all know what he can do as a runner, and he's pretty decent at passing, but he can definitely improve. Don't hate me for that, all right? You guys won plenty of games, all right? Chill out. And then at pick 29, we have the Tennessee Titans going Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle out of Boise State. This is another guy who was higher up on the Pro Football Network's board. I could also see Josh Jones here. They're both very good, borderline late first, top of the second round offensive tackles. And Tennessee, also obviously losing Jack Conklin, could use another offensive lineman, especially, I mean, they really rely on that run game, and you need good offensive linemen to make the run game work. And so Ezra Cleveland makes sense to me. Get some protection for your new highly paid quarterback and your currently franchise tagged, hopefully extended running back. We'll see how it goes, although I'm not very much for paying running backs. We'll see what happens. And at pick 30, I have the Green Bay Packers. They could have gone a couple different ways here, but mainly they just need weapons for Aaron Rodgers, and they don't have a lot of holes, so maybe it's a slight reach, but I feel like they can afford to reach here. So I have them going Jalen Reagor, wide receiver out of TCU. He is very fast, very shifty, and a very good wide receiver in this year's draft class, and I think it'd be him getting to work with Aaron Rodgers would be very beneficial for both of them. Really, you could have any pick a wide receiver here. Maybe they reach and take the top tight end available in Cole Kmet. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think Reagor is very good, though. And at pick 31, I have the San Francisco 49ers taking a cornerback. I thought their top needs were wide receiver and corner. They addressed wide receiver with their 13th pick. So here I have them taking A.J. Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. This might be a little high on them, but they need a corner. They were just in the Super Bowl. If it's a slight reach, whatever, you're getting your top two positions and need addressed in the first round. And I do think Terrell could do very solid. Maybe if not a number one guy, at least a number two corner in this league. Just get another camp body in there to compete, right? He'll make the roster at the very least, and he'll be a solid addition. And then at pick 32, the Chiefs, they're an interesting team. They could go a couple different ways, but I had them, just coming off the fact they're coming just off the Super Bowl. I had them just getting a weapon that could just make them even deadlier. And so seeing DeAndre Swift still on the board, it's too tough to pass up. He rarely fumbles. He runs like a beast, and he's a receiving threat out of the backfield. And him with Patrick Mahomes is just a scary sight. I know their running backs are pretty solid, but I don't think any of them are on DeAndre Swift levels of skill. And so putting them together is a match made in heaven. All right, guys, that is my first round mock draft 2.0. Let me know what you guys think, how I drafted for your team, what you would have changed. Maybe you think you think your team would never draft this guy. Let me know why you feel that, or why you agree, why you disagree. Just let me know. Comment below. Feel free. I'll be more than happy to discuss this with you. Like I said, I'm not really an expert here, but I felt like these are pretty good picks. Like, if I was a fan of any of these teams, I wouldn't be super disappointed if I draft any of the guys I mocked them. But let me know how you feel. I mean, if you don't even have, like me, my team doesn't even have a first-round pick. So maybe if you have any who you think your team will get in the second round, you can comment that below too. But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This is KMA Preston signing out. See you guys later.